Hey, thank you.
You are.
Hi, I'm Janet Zablock, and I have the pleasure of sitting in San Mateo, California, outside of San Francisco. And I have the pleasure of to be able to facilitate a discussion around CARES, the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, and how that might be a potential lifeline for small businesses as we look to ride through this unprecedented economic times, and how our fintech founders and companies innovating to help get the needed funds to small businesses. I'm pleased to have with me two folks that are going to help us talk through this. First being Everett Cook, who is the CEO and co-founder at Row Business Banking, which is a business banking platform dedicated to simplifying the finance stack. Everett has previously worked as a global macro portfolio manager and analyst at several multi-billion-dollar hedge funds, including Point72. And Row has helped hundreds of businesses apply for the Paycheck Protection Program. Welcome,
Thank you.
Everett. And then we also have Greg Ott, who is the CEO of NAV. And Greg has more than 20 years of experience as a leader within both startups and Fortune 1000 companies. And NAV has been focused on helping business owners manage their credit and get streamlined access to financing. So welcome, Greg. Let's start with Everett. On March 27th, President Trump signed the CARES Act into law, promising $349 billion in job retention loans for small businesses, with loan forgiveness available for businesses that continue paying their workers. How effective do you think the program is in helping small businesses through this crisis? And maybe what's your experience been thus far with the program?
Thanks, Janet. Great to see everyone, or not see everybody, but be here. So yeah, the program's been active for, I guess, 2 weeks now. From my perspective, the intention of the program is to keep people off of unemployment. And I think that will be effective if the crisis is short-lived. It's not a long-term solution. And so I think a lot of it just depends on how long are we in this for? How long are we shut down as an economy? And if it is, if it is short-lived, I think it will be an effective program. I think it's much less disruptive to society and to the sort of safety nets that we have as a country to keep people on payroll, even though it is an expensive form of stimulus and an expensive form of that unemployment. Keeping people on payroll and keeping people employed through this period, I think will ultimately save a lot of jobs. So I think in general, it is a well-constructed program, in spite of the short amount of time that Washington had to put it together.
And unfortunately, we've somehow lost Greg. Yes, we did, and I'm trying to get him hooked into someone. Hold on 1 second. See if we can get someone to get him back on. And, in the meantime, let me ask you, what has your company been doing to help navigate this unprecedented legislation? And, how has it impacted your company in general? You are, in fact, a small business.
Yeah, absolutely. So from our perspective, I'm CEO and co-founder at Row Business Banking. So what we do is provide business banking for companies ranging from like small to like mid-market companies. We have a lot of companies that are technology startups. We have a lot of companies that look like more traditional operating businesses. And we try to help them manage their full finance stack. So we offer banking and everything that sort of surrounds that, including expenses, cards, things like that. One of the things that we started offering 2.5 months ago were financing solutions, where our team works with companies on our platform and banks in our network to help them access financing and help them grow their businesses. During that process, we ended up working with a lot of SBA lenders. And so when the crisis hit, we were sort of well positioned to help our companies and clients and friends of our company or referrals access SBA financing, because those were the same banks that we had been working with prior to that, sort of in the first part of this year. So we jumped into gear as quickly as possible. Our full team, basically dropped what they were doing and focused on this to get it up and running as quickly as possible. And we've been helping our clients and other companies basically access our network of lenders, get funded as quickly as possible, and get in front of the whichever lender is moving as quickly as possible. So in addition to just technology, we are basically talking to our full network of lenders every single day and trying to understand who is moving at what pace, and where we can best place our people. It's a challenge. Everybody is overwhelmed. Every lender, every SBA lender and non-SBA lender is completely overwhelmed with the number of applications. So it is, we try to help as best we can, which is basically us to sort of play traffic cop and try to just help our people get the funding that they need to keep their businesses going. And then to be as much of a resource as possible in terms of information, especially in the early days of the program. It was really confusing for people. I think now it's a little bit clearer. But as things were in flux, we built a site and we're constantly updating that with information as it changed, and built like surveys and things like that to help companies sort of navigate the questions that we were getting, on a daily basis. It's still somewhat confusing, but again, like the size of the program and how fast it came together, I'm actually like pretty impressed. With Greg.
Greg is back. Welcome back, Greg.
Phone with our organizer. Apparently, if you try to reply to a chat, it kicks you out, and you can't get back in as a participant. I guess
this
so.
is quarantine life.
I apologize.
Next, my dog will start barking, so don't worry. As Everett was just kind of discussing about his experience in Row Business Banking's experience so far with the CARES Act. So let me just circle back to you, Greg, for a minute and ask what you've been seeing since the CARES Act was introduced into law back on March 27th, and the $349 billion in job retention, loans for small businesses, and loan forgiveness was put into place. How effective do you think that's been, and what is NAV seeing?
So NAV, we've always been a gateway to help small businesses access financing. We're not a lender. We sit on top of over 60 lenders, and then we typically use credit data and cash flow data to help align small businesses to the right lenders for them and help them meet their needs and streamline that process. In this situation, we're similarly acting like a gateway. So we've been pretty involved in the PPP rollout. On one hand, you could look at it as a positive thing that it actually, if you say what has happened in 2 weeks, has been really fast and a lot. $349 billion being made available to small businesses. On the other hand, the rollout has been plagued with problems, challenges, and confusions. It really started out, the SBA started working with banks, which meant that they're working with the incumbent lenders. And like anything else, they ended up favoring their customers and their clients and really protecting their baseline. So the hype got created of all this money being available, but in reality, for the first more than a week, it was really only available to the largest clients of the largest banks. Yeah. And all the kinks really hadn't been worked out. So it's been really confusing and really chaotic. We have a lot of sympathy for the small business owners who are just saying, hey, I'm just trying to keep myself in business. And we have stories of people who have spent 48 hours trying to get financing and just couldn't get through the process or are still waiting. So I think on one hand, it's well intended, but the rollout has been fraught with challenges. Slowly, though, some of those challenges are getting fixed and addressed. The most recent one was Last week, they started to allow non-bank lenders into the program. Well, last week they said they could apply. This week, some of those applications are getting approved. And hopefully by later this week, some of them will actually be able to start processing loans. So there is hope that this could have a real impact, but it's yet to really, the floodgates have really yet to get going.
Yeah. And what specifically has NAB been doing, or have you been in contact with the federal government? Have you been able to, work with the SBA or influence any of the program or help clear up?
Yeah, we were fortunate enough to have within our network opportunity to work directly with one of the White House advisors to the SBA, with some of the technology team at the SBA, and with the small business advisor to the House. And I was actually, to be honest with you, quite impressed in each one of those conversations, how open those government officials were towards feedback, and that their intention, they actually realized the challenge, that they were going to need fintechs to actually get to the money out to the people that they needed, know yet how to unclog the pipes of making all that work. So we were very fortunate in terms of being able to get involved in them. And then as we saw, as soon as the program was announced, NAB first went out with a calculator to really help small business understand what kind of loan could they get and how much of that would be forgivable, so they could actually start their planning quickly. So we built a calculator at a resource center. My content team was actually putting out updated FAQs multiple times a day to help small businesses. And then we launched one of the first online applications, a universal app form that we can use. And then we work with lenders so we can point that application at whatever lender has capacity for financing. So we're trying to do everything we can to help small businesses and help in this program.
Great. Everett, do you think the federal government needs to do more to provide more than dollars to small businesses? And if so, what might that be, or what's your observation?
Certainly. I mean, I think there's always, like, you lost 16 million jobs over the past 2 weeks. I think those numbers would have been higher if this program did not exist. You still lost that number of people. And I mean, to put that in perspective, right, that is like larger than the amount of people that was cumulatively lost like throughout the Great Recession. So from a government perspective, like, this is one piece of what they need to do to make the impact as low as possible, but the impact is still very large. There's no getting around that. And I think that those people need to be able to rely on a social safety net and ultimately find jobs. Anytime you have large displacements in the labor force, hopefully most of them will get rehired if and when things turn around, depending on that timing. However, a substantial number of them won't go back to the same jobs, and so there will ultimately need to be more like training and resources and incentives for employers to hire those people, just like every other period where we've had like large disruptions. But again, I think the PPP program is a strong step in the right direction, but it's, it is only one piece of the puzzle.
It would be horrible to think about where we would be without it.
Yeah.
But I completely agree with Everett. It's one step.
One step, right. And Greg, what is the biggest challenge that your company has faced over the past few weeks?
With the program itself, it's recognizing who's going to have capacity and who's going to really handle their non-bank customers. The banks, and you can kind of see why, right? They started out lending to the people that they had already underwritten and lent to. And then they started to say, okay, now I'll start to work my way down my sheet of my best customers, because they really didn't know how the program was going to be rolled, exactly what relief they were going to be given on the loans in the back end. And then what really left was this huge population of the non-bank customers waiting to find out where they could get access to these loans. And that's really been hard for NAB, because we've been trying to be very transparent and helpful to our customers, to small businesses all over the place. And we only knew what we knew. And we were waiting for information from the banks and the non-bank lenders as to when they were going to have capacity to take on more customers. So that's made it really challenging just to stay on top of what's going on and communicate that to small businesses.
Yeah, I mean, we had the similar experience from our perspective. Like we looked to like advise companies that were coming to us initially. while we were creating capacity for them, and if they did have a line of credit out with another bank, that was still probably going to be the fastest place for them to access funds. Realistically, I'm hopeful that things are calming down at the larger banks, and there's a more orderly process. But the first 2 days certainly were challenging for a lot of small businesses.
Yeah.
So then likely the folks that will have been left behind if the funds run out, and we were having this discussion before we came on the air, or maybe we were on the air, we didn't know it, but we were wondering how long this money is going to be there. And even though it's supposed to be there till June 30th, we suspect it will run out in the next few days or few weeks. And probably those folks that will be caught kind of flat-footed are those that haven't had a previous loan with an existing bank. And those are the folks that are going to really need some additional support potentially.
Yeah, it looks pretty clear that the 350 billion or 349 billion is going to be, I would say, spoken for within the next, call it, few days of the week. It's still log jammed in terms of actually getting there. If you look at the numbers, there's about the SBA numbers, there's about 5.9 million small businesses that have employees that are somewhat under 500 employees that are eligible for the program. So through this 350 billion, it looks like it'll probably be somewhere around 1 million loans or so, a little bit south of that are going to grant it, which really leaves about 4.9 million small businesses that have yet to access this capital.
Yeah.
On the optimistic side, you say they're going to come back, they're going to add about a $200 billion addition to it. And the people who waited, the kinks will be worked out of the system. The non-bank lenders will all be up, and the process will be smooth and easy. That's the optimist view. The pessimist view is, oh shoot, I missed it. I need the money now. And the 200 billion will be delayed or held up, and then we'll have to go through the same kinks in the system overall. But so it is really going to be interesting to see what happens in the next week. It is definitely up to Congress to make more funds available urgently. I think there's consensus that needs to happen, yet it hasn't happened yet. So it's a little concerning.
Yeah.
Agreed. Through this, because you're also, trying to work your way through this unprecedented dynamic, as we all are, just whether your workforce is working from home, or, you've had to, move your developers off site and they can't collaborate as much. What other things have you seen emerge, or have you partnered with other companies that you didn't see that maybe make sense for you to bring better services to small businesses, or other leaders that you've seen emerge that you would like to mimic, if you have examples?
Go ahead, Everett.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks. So, I mean, yeah, like in terms of our team, we're normally based in New York City. We've all basically gone to different places. Some have stayed in the city. Some have gone home, wherever home is for them. But I think from a working perspective, it's actually been good. I think we've actually worked, partially because of just the urgency of everything we've had to do over the past month. We've definitely worked harder than I think we ever have. I think in general, I don't know that we want this to be permanent. However, I think it's actually been net positive in terms of our team working together and collaborating. There are great tools that are available now that weren't available very long ago that make that a lot easier. In terms of like what it's meant for us, what we built, we are you can think of us as like a digital version of a very full service bank. And so from our perspective, it's actually been really positive, because so many people have had so many negative experiences with their existing financial institutions over the past month. From simple things like I have to go in to deposit a check and I can't walk in the branch, to more complex things like the PPP, or getting advice on how to sort of navigate this, and just general like workflow tools. The fact that people are not sitting next to each other all day means things like expenses and payables are more challenging if you're using like antiquated systems or just relying on spreadsheets, versus like using a product that actually helps you do that. So we've had a lot of interest in what we do and how we help business. I think it's been positive for us, and we're able to help more companies. I don't know who my crisis hero is. That's a good question. I don't know, Greg, if you have someone in mind. I hadn't thought about that.
Everett, I would love to just echo on something you said, and I think it's a positive. So it's a glass half full, especially for row business banking. Is historically small businesses have been slow in cases to embrace technology, and so they are the person that still goes in the branch and deposits their checks or brings their cash in. And I think that this will change that behavior, and it's been a behavior that's been embedded. I mean, I worked in small business. It's been embedded for years. We would measure how many people moved off checks, who's still doing deposits. So I think that's a really one positive that can come out is it will help the small business to more automate and streamline and give up those paper books and spreadsheets, which might be helpful. And I think you are positioned.
And anything that like reduces costs too. I think there's obviously like an increased focus on the cost of all this stuff, both from a maintenance perspective and from a direct cost perspective. And so people are definitely, cared less about that 6 months ago, now care very deeply about that.
Yeah. Greg?
Yeah, I think one of the
things
that I guess is a pleasant surprise is I feel like the financial ecosystem around small businesses has really been coming together. And we've been in conversation with large banks, with software providers to large banks, with merchant processors, with alternative lenders, with SBA lenders. And it's really been a collaborative conversation of how can we work together? What do you have? How can I help you? The first people who got some capacity with existing SBA banks were actually great at kind of saying, hey, if I have extra capacity, I'm happy to share it with your customers. So the ecosystem, the financial ecosystem, I felt has kind of come together. Historically, there's been a bit of this division between the banking ecosystem and the non-banking ecosystem. And I think the small businesses are the ones who feel that division the most. This really I think has helped chip away at some of those walls and help the ecosystem start to work together a little bit better.
Zach Weinberg actually is my coronavirus hero. Based on his Twitter account, he's been the best.
I'm sorry, who is that, Everett?
He's the co-founder of Flatiron Health.
Okay.
And been very had really good points about the crisis and really good insights.
Yeah, I would say it's been hard to it's been hard to get clear. It likes to create sensational headlines. The money's all gone. There's plenty of money. The banks are taking care of this. The banks are messing this up. So it's harder to get a good, clear story because of kind of the hype and the cycle. It is so some of the SBA. There's actually a few senators who actually I think are regularly tweeting on what's actually happening, what conversations are regularly happening in Treasury, and I try and use that to try and ground us. Okay, what's really going on? Because if you just follow your Google News feed, everything is extreme. There's no question that the pipes are clogged, but the reality is they are becoming unclogged, which is good news.
Have either of you had any anecdotes you've had from small businesses who've either been successful or trying to work through this, or even trying to make decisions of, do I try to stay in business or do I let my employees go on, unemployment? Any anecdotes from any of your customers or experiences? Everett, if you want to go first.
Sure. I mean, yeah, the first week, especially, we spent a lot of time on the phone with companies and clients, trying to help them make sense of all this. It's definitely not our position to advise them on those types of decisions. But I think certainly them having clarity about the program has, I think, certainly helped them make those decisions much better and with more visibility, more flexibility. I know we've helped companies, and the PPP in general has helped a number of companies on our platform stay in business, which has been critical. I think people are extremely grateful that this exists.
Yeah, I'm sure they're just looking for trusted advisor information at this point to make those, complicated
Yeah,
decisions.
I think we've seen some
Greg,
good
what about
stories
you?
and some tough stories. We saw a note from a company called Signal Health, Alabama. They got their PPP loan. It's because of this. We're not laying off any of you all. And this has been great. And we're going to get through this. In 8 weeks, we're going to figure this out. And it's a really uplifting story that says, hey, it's working. And I think there are around 50 or 60 people, I can't remember exactly, and didn't have to lay off any. I think some of the tougher stories are actually even the smaller companies that either have none or one or under 5 employees, and they're the ones who are kind of last in line right now, and they just don't know if they can, even if they bring their employees back, is their business going to come back? And so those are some of the heartbreaking stories of the smaller, especially say businesses immigrant-run businesses, people who haven't necessarily been in the core banking system. Statistically, most small businesses, if you look, have around 17 to 30 days cash on hand. And so, yes, they've got to get into the queue, they've got to get this money, but then they're still trying to figure out what it is. And we're just hopeful that they're able to weather the storm and that the healthcare crisis subsides so that people can go back and support these businesses.
Yeah, great. Well, we've got just a couple minutes, so why don't I wrap up by asking you kind of a positive, what is the biggest opportunity that you see emerging from this challenging situation, either for your company or for small business, however you'd like to handle that?
In one hand, I think small businesses and the access to capital for small businesses has often been the second story after consumer lending and solutions for consumers. I think people recognize that because of the way this crisis hit, it is that small businesses are taking the brunt of the impact of this crisis. So if there's a silver lining, it's that small businesses are being, their issues are being recognized and they're being paid attention to. If you really look at the recession of 08-09, that's when banks really pulled back from supporting small businesses. Too risky, too hard to predict. What are we going to do? That created this white space opportunity that the alternative lenders have started to step into, but that still hasn't been, kind of a fully recognized in terms of we all need to solve for small businesses. So, we think that the opportunity on the backside of this is just keeping that spotlight on how do we have solutions for small businesses.
I couldn't agree more with what Greg said in terms of the small business economy. I think in general, broadly speaking, like the opportunity that this creates is massive. I think anytime that you have disruption, faster moving firms, more agile firms, new firms of all shapes and sizes in all industries. I'm not just speaking specifically about like fintech. Have the ability to gain ground and take market share. The crisis of 08, was like the best example of this. The companies that came out of that were the ones that were agile and moved fast and created things that people really wanted. So I think that like it's actually like a tremendous time for to be an entrepreneur. And I think that the entrepreneurs that are coming into this, that maybe started companies recently, or maybe are thinking about starting them right now, or maybe they got laid off from a job and they are going to start a company. There's a tremendous amount of opportunity because anytime that you knock down, like very large companies, it generally creates a ton of opportunity for people to build new things that are great, that really speak to what people want, and the distribution mechanisms are become more open. The ability to attract talent is higher. So I think I'm really hopeful, like of just like the amazing like products and services and companies that are being started right now. There's like thousands of them.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I thank you both for your time and insights, and I'm grateful that you're all trying to help small businesses through this rocky road, and everyone stay safe and healthy.
Thank you.
It will be interesting. It's changing day by day, week by week. I wish we could regroup next week because it's all going to be different, and we're going to have better outtakes. There were a couple of questions on the side about how many bankruptcies and how's this going to work. And And right now, it's like it feels like the winds kind of shift
Correct.
a little bit depending on this. So, stay tuned. And I think if the ecosystem of innovation and companies kind of support each other, it's going to have the best outcome for everybody.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
I agree. Thank you all.